Good morning, guys. We are going to talk about box and whisker plots today. So our lesson is about box and whisker plots. So let's take a look at that. So a box and whisker plot is a specific type of plot that shows the variability of a data set along a number line using the least value, the greatest value, and the quartiles of the data set. So this is what a box and whisker plot looks like. You've probably seen one back from middle school. And let's talk about what each of those parts are. So when you're dealing with a box and whisker plot, the first point that you see in your box and whisker plot right here is your minimum value, or the least value, the lowest value in your data set. Then you draw a whisker and you draw it to what's called the first quartile. All right. Your first quartile is what's called the median of the middle of the first half of the data set. Okay. So quartiles divide the data set into 4 equal parts. Then we have the median value, which we know from the previous lesson is our middle value, and that divides the data set in half. And then we have our third quartile, okay, and then we have our maximum value right here. So when we're talking about the first quartile and the third quartile, those are our medians of the first half of the data and the second half. So what does that mean? That means if I only look at the first half of the data values, meaning the first half of the data when I order it from least to greatest, and I take a median of the first half of the data, that's my first quartile. When I take a median of the second half of the data, that's my third quartile. And what the quartiles do is they divide your data set up into 4 equal parts. So the first quarter of the data is here, second quarter is here, third quarter is here, and then the fourth quarter is here. The 5 numbers that make up a box and whisker plot are what we call a 5-number summary. And your 5-number summary is just your minimum, Q1, your median, Q3, and your maximum. So let's take a look. It says make a box and whisker plot that represents the ages of the members of a backpacking expedition in the mountains. So if you're going to make a box and whisker plot, you want to start by ordering the data. So we want to write it in order. And I'm going to do this by hand once, and then I'm going to show you how to use technology to do that. So we've got 18, then we've got 22, 22. And we've got 24. Then 25, 25, 25. I cross them out as I go along so I know, okay, what I'm doing. And then what do we have? We've got a 27, a 28, and then 3 30s. So you want to count up how many data values you have. And I always start by writing our 5-number summary. So some of them are easy to pick out right away. Like we know the minimum. Minimum is equal to 18. Q1, we're going to have to wait to find. The median, we're going to have to wait to find. Q3, we're going to have to wait to find. And the maximum, we're going to have to wait to find. Oh, the maximum we know, sorry. The maximum is 30. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 data values. So when we have 12 data values, we know that our median is going to be the 2 middle data values and the average of those. So here are my 2 middle values, okay? And the average of those is going to be 25. So my median is at 25. Now, let's look at the first half of the data, and we want to find that minimum value. So that minimum value in the first half of the data, if I divide my data set here, okay, into the first half and the second half, then the minimum value of my first half of the data is going to be the average of these 2 values, so 23. And the median of the second half of the data is going to be the average of these 2 values, so 29. And now I could make my, my box plot. Okay, so when you make a box plot, you want to draw in a number line. So here's my number line. And you want to count by like an even number in terms of your axis. So I'm going to go starting at 18, and I'm going to count by twos. 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. I always start by drawing my middle box, which is from 23 to 29. And I'm going to draw in the median, which is at 25. And then I'm going to put my whiskers, which go to 30 and then down to 18. And then there's my box and whisker plot right there. Okay, now you can use technology to create box and whisker plots as well. And there's a link on Classroom on Desmos on how to do that. And we'll do that with this example right here. So we want to make a box and whisker plot that represents the data set here. And I'm going to go on Desmos and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we've got 14, 16, 25, 22, 30, and so on. So on Desmos, on this link, in this first thing, I'm going to enter my data set. I had 14. You don't have to even put it in order on Desmos. 16, 25, 16, 14, 16, 25, 22, 30, 16, and 28. 22, 22, 30, 16, and 28. Okay? And Desmos will make that box plot right for you. Okay? You don't have to click anything underneath the box plot tab. That's just going to show you how it created that box plot. But if you click where it says random stuff about your data, you can get all the information that we just got. It'll even tell you some more stuff like the mean and the range and stuff like that. But they call things a little bit differently. And again, you can just click the dots and you can see them. We only care about the X values here. So I know my minimum is 5. I know my Q1 value is 15.5. I know my median is 19. And I know my Q3 value is 23.5. And my maximum is 30. And it has those values here as well. Okay? But I would just click on the box plot in order to see what those values are. So use Desmos to help you, but know what a box plot is telling you. Let's keep going. All right, now they're telling you, okay, here's your data set, and they're giving you the box plot. They want you to describe a couple things. So the first thing they wanted you to describe is the range. So we know that the range is your maximum minus your minimum value. So range is max minus min. So I'm going from 300 to 160. So my range is 140. Okay? And you could describe it in words as well, saying that the maximum song length was 300 seconds and the minimum song length was 160. So the range in song length is 140 seconds. Now, what else can we describe in this data set? We know the minimum is 160. We know Q1, the first quartile, is 220. We know the median is 260. We know Q3 is 280. And we know the max is 300. There's one other thing we could describe. Oops. We haven't gotten there yet, so we won't describe that. But that's all we can describe. Sorry. That's all we can describe in this data set. I don't know the mean. You can't tell the mean from a box plot. But remember, minimum, Q1, median, Q3, max. Okay? Find and interpret the inner quartile range. So the inner quartile range, this right here, is just Q3 minus Q1. So we're looking at the values from Q1 to Q3. So in this case, it would be 280 minus 220. So your IQR, your interquartile range, which is abbreviated IQR, is equal to 60 seconds. And what IQR is, okay, it is the range of the middle half of the data. Okay, it's the range from your first quartile to your third quartile. Part D says, are the data more spread out below Q1, okay, meaning in this area or in this area? Well, obviously, if we look at the distance from the minimum to Q1, that's a larger distance than from Q3 to the max. So they're more spread out below Q1 because the distance from the minimum to Q1 is greater than Q3 to the max. All right? Let's keep going. Same idea in this example. I don't think we need to go through this. Let's talk about shape from a box and whisker plot. Okay, the shape from a box and whisker plot, you can determine if it's skewed left, meaning most of the data is on the right side, symmetric, or skewed right. And the way we look at that is we look at the distance of your whiskers. So here, my left whisker is larger, so the data set is skewed left. Here, my whiskers are the same, so that means that it's symmetric. And here, my right whisker is longer, so it's skewed right. So you want to look at the distance of your whiskers, and that'll tell you the shape of the box and whisker plot. So let's take a look at this. And we want to say, what are these identifying the shapes? So we're going to look at the distance from here, your whiskers. So in your class, you obviously see that your left whisker is longer. So in your class, we have a skewed left distribution. And in your friends, they look about the same. So we have a symmetric distribution. Which test scores are more spread out? So more spread out means a larger range. So obviously your friends class, and we could say why, because the range is larger. The interquartile range is also larger, so you could say that as well. All right, so that's all for this lesson. Key things here, make sure that you're able to identify the different values of a box and whisker plot. So know that it's the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the maximum value. You can use Desmos using the link that's on Classroom. Make sure you're able to identify what the range is and be able to describe a distribution. Know what the interquartile range is, Q3 minus Q1. And know how to determine the shape of a box plot by looking at the whiskers and which whisker is longer. That's it for today. Good luck, and see you next time.